Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jamila Lodge. I'm the Communication and Development Director for BEDC, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how you pivot to do business online. I'm very excited to have with me, you could go to the next slide. Right. So before we get into the panel, let me just give you a little overview about BEDC. Some of you may be our clients already, but for those who are not, just a little history. We were established in 1980 to assist with providing people who needed financial support. So our primary purpose was to provide loan guarantees to businesses who wanted to start. So we have a relationship with the 3 banks on the island, and the government also provided sort of a guarantee to get us started, or capitalization to get us started. And currently we provide existing and potential small businesses and medium-sized businesses with business advice and financial assistance to get them started. Next slide. So what do we do? You can book a one-on-one meeting with one of our officers. These are free and usually last between 30 minutes to an hour. And you can talk about anything from what's required to get started on up to, if you are started, what you need to grow your business. We, again, provide financial support. So we do provide loan guarantee assistance. So for those businesses needing a little bit more capital, we can guarantee 75% of a bank loan up to $300,000. And as of late, we have been doing direct lending through BEDC. So that means you get the funds directly from us with our microloan product, which is up to $30,000. And that's fully secured by BEDC. So there's no external security required for that. In addition, we manage the 3 economic empowerment zones, which are located in St. George's, Somerset, and Northeast Hamilton. And by managing, I mean we have specific products available for those 3 zones to support business growth in those areas. We do have educational programs and incubators, so this will be one, our webinar. We have a series of webinars. We have a series of multi-week educational programs, seminars, as well as we run the Enterprise Bermuda Incubator for 8 businesses, and that's through an application program. We also have our Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program, which will support up to 10 students with starting a business over the summer. And last but not least, we also manage the vendor licensing. So if you are a vendor and you're not online yet, you would come to BEDC to get a vending license to sell imported goods on the island. Next slide. So who we help? For us, we have 2 primary stakeholders. So a small business, which is Bermudian owned and operated, an annual gross payroll not exceeding $500,000 or annual sales revenue of less than $1 million. And we also support medium-sized businesses. Next slide. Which is, so basically you have to have at least 3 of these following attributes. So gross annual revenues between $1 million and $5 million, annual payroll between $500,000 and $2.5 million, a minimum of 11 and a max of 50 employees in operation for 10 years, and net assets of less than 2.5 million. So any of these 3, if you can tick, we would define you as a medium-sized businesses, and you would be eligible to take advantage of any of the products that I mentioned in the slide before. Next. So this is what we're looking like. Welcome and intro of panel is coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about what's required to actually get online. We have Peter on the line who's going to talk about payment processing. I'm going to ask him a series of questions, and I will allow him to add any additional information as needed. And then we'll turn it over to you for question and answer, so you can ask the panel direct questions. And if need be, I have a list of questions here that can help guide the conversation. And then we'll be done. Next. Next slide. Yeah. So again, my name is Jamila Lodge. I'm the Communication and Development Director with BEDC. I'm happy to have Peter Fawn, who is the Butterfield Bank's Head of Merchant Services for Bermuda and Cayman. Joining him is Danielle Painter, who's the VP Head of Business Development for Butterfield Bank, as well as the owner of NAB app. Pamela Cannonier, who's the owner of Sweet Sack Bakery, and Kelsey Williams, who's the Communication and Development Officer with BEDC, but she herself is also an entrepreneur and she owns Novelty. So they will all be sharing kind of their information on what they had to do to get online and what's been working for them. So let's talk a little bit about getting online. You could go to the next slide. These are some of the things that you need to consider, right? So when we talk about e-business, it's a businesses that leverages technology in the online environment, simply put. Many of the requirements that you need to consider are the same for any other business. So a lot of people are like, well, what's required? Think what you would do to establish a brick and mortar. You would still need to do those same things with establishing an online business in Bermuda. And then, of course, use your resources, experts to assist you. And BEDC, the Bank of Butterfield, would also be one of those experts. Okay. So again, what's your business idea? Does it make sense for you to have an online presence? One of the things that you need to specifically think about when starting your business is registering a domain name. So the process by which you would do that is, of course, in Bermuda, we have our .bms. There's a cost for that, which is $100 annually. And you might decide that you want a .com, especially if you're online and you're considering selling internationally. You might want to consider doing both. So .bm and .com, or just sticking with the .com. If you are interested in a .bm, there's a link here to the Bermuda NIC, and they will take you through that process. And then examples of where you can register a domain with for .com is GoDaddy or Shopify. And what I will say is with online businesses, it is keen to get the domain name, right? A lot of people are like, well, do I get that first? Do I register my business? Go ahead and get the domain name locked down. That doesn't cost that much money, and it does give you a little bit of protection. The next is a developer. Who's going to build this site for you? Who's going to assist you? And that is really key, because a lot of the things that you're going to be looking at as we talk about payment processing coming up, you don't want to build a website and then find that you don't have a way to connect the shopping cart or food processing with the banks that work here locally. And then, of course, what type of formation is your business going to take? Most people in Bermuda start out as a sole proprietor, which is perfectly fine. But you also have the option of limiting your liability by creating a limited liability company, or you can create a company limited by shares, or a partnership, which of course is two people. And you have your general, which you could just agree to work with somebody, sign off on some documentation, or a limited partnership, which you would need to get support, legal support, to actually enact those. Next. So some of the things that you're going to have to consider, whether you're online or not, are your payroll tax, registration, social insurance, health insurance, and pension. The other thing that's important is, just because you're online doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want, right? There are still some standards that you have to consider when setting up your online business. And this just basically, e-business connected with Bermuda should conduct themselves in a way that preserves the island's good name and reputation. So there are, of course, some things that you should not do based on Bermuda laws and legislation. So this slide just details all of the laws that govern e-businesses. All of them can be found online, and I can follow up and give you links to all of these documents if necessary. But the one that we're going to talk a little bit more about is the Personal Information Protection Act, which was passed in 2016. Okay. So these are the 5 standards that you want to think about when you're setting up online or doing business online. The first is observing business integrity. So no prohibited activities, and those laws that were in the previous slides details specifically what you can and can't do. Know your customer. I know that's going to be important to Peter and any of the other banking institutions on the island. Number 3, know your business. Stay informed and exercise good judgment. 4, protect personal data. Respect its privacy, accuracy, and security. And that is basically referring to the PIPA or PIPA legislation. And then last but not least is avoid abusive language and do not send unsolicited emails. Don't spam people. Don't seek unauthorized access to other systems or seek to interrupt their access to other systems. So those are the e-commerce standards which governs online businesses in Bermuda. Okay. So these are some additional standards, of course, which should be self-explanatory, but I'm sharing them here with you. Advertise truthfully. You know how they do the bait and switch, right? So you see one price, you get excited, and then when you actually go to buy it, it doubles or triples. So we encourage you not to do that. Deal fairly and openly with customers, trade and settle with them in an honest and transparent manner. So if you have maybe a return policy, it needs to be posted where people can see it. You need to be able to access your customers, or they need to be able to access you quickly, and be able to resolve any complaints that they may have. And then settle complaints and disputes quickly and fairly. Allow yourself an opportunity to list how you would do that and the steps a person would need to go through in order to do that. So there are a couple of things that you have to have on your website or any online presence. And it has to be the business name and email address. So some people have websites and they just have like a contact us page, but there's no way for you to actually reach them. I don't know if you've experienced it, but I have. When I'm going to a website and I'm looking to how do I email and I can't find it, it's very frustrating. And usually I just X out and go somewhere else. So you are legally required to provide some sort of email or contact information if you are online. And then a statement that your business is obliged to comply with the standard for electronic transactions, again, which is what I mentioned earlier. So, PIPA. This is something that's getting really serious. We have finally gotten a privacy officer or director, if you will. Even though this was passed in 2016, it's just now beginning to take hold. And so basically this just governs how you use people's information. Basically, you now are the responsible person to make sure that you're taking care of people's private information. So whether you have a website, whether you're on Facebook, if you're accepting people's information, you have to keep it safe. Okay? So if you are taking people's information, please ensure that you're doing it legitimately, that it is, if it's sensitive information, then it needs to be kept separate from other things. If you are accepting the information, do it fairly, meaning within the frame of the law, and ensure that you're allowing people to know that that's what you're doing. So you have to tell people, oh, I'm capturing this information and this is why, and only use it for the purpose for which you are capturing the information. So you can't take people's contact details and then start selling them something else. That would not be within the confines of the law. And also make sure that it's proportionate with what it is that you're using it for. So it needs to be adequate, relevant, and not excessive. So the minimum amount of information that will allow you to do your job is what you should be taking. And then, of course, make sure that any policies that you have, you share them with your people, and that all of that information is up to date. So I know some of you might be thinking, oh crap, what do I need to do? If that is the case, you can appoint a privacy person, or in the case if it's just you and you're running the business, then you would just need to make yourself aware of some of the things that I just said. But there are also consultants on the island that you can work with that will assist you. So putting your privacy guidelines, your procedures, and policies in place, so that if, as and when you hire on employees, they are aware of what the proper processes are, making sure that your website or whatever online platform you're using has the necessary security, SSL certificates, etc. And also make sure what you're capturing is reasonable. Like I said earlier, you don't need everybody's information. You don't need all the information if it is not necessary for you to conduct business with the individual. So I am going to turn it over to Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hello there. Good morning.
Thank you again for being on the call with us. And I'm going to ask Kelsey if you can keep an eye on the questions. So if anyone has any specific questions about payment processing, hopefully we can get Peter to ask. But Peter, before we get started, what exactly do you do at Butterfield Bank with regard to the merchant services? What's your primary function there?
Okay, my title is Vice President, and I'm head of the merchant services for Bermuda and Cayman Islands. So essentially anything to do with the merchant business from start to finish. So anything remotely connected with merchants accepting cards, then that would fall under my domain, including e-commerce.
Okay, perfect. So you're the guy that we want to be talking to.
I'm the guy.
You're the guy. So a lot of businesses are getting started, right? And they're trying to figure out what exactly they need to facilitate them being able to accept payments online. So I might have a bank account, right? I have a bank account with Butterfield, but what do I need to do to be able to accept an online payment?
Okay, well, if you're already a client, with Butterfield, then obviously that makes things a lot easier because there's already history with the bank. So simply, all they would need to do is to contact us to say that they would like to set up an e-commerce account with us. We would then send them the merchant application form with the e-commerce addendum for it, and they would just need to complete that and return it to us. And then at the same time, if they could just then advise us which is their preferred payment gateway provider. So which one are they working with to actually build their website and to provide that shopping cart, and so they can facilitate credit card payments.
So that brings me to my next question. Do you have Butterfield? Does Butterfield have a preferred payment gateway provider? Because I know not all of them work in Bermuda. So can you share with us which one?
I mean, we don't have preferred ones, but we do have a list of all of the ones that we're currently working with. So as soon as anybody sends us an inquiry, we will give them all of the companies that we work with.
Okay. So with that in mind, because I know like some people will use like a Wix or a free website kind of software to get set up, and it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Do you suggest that they reach out to the bank first to get that list of payment gateways before they embark on trying to build a website or something that may or may not work with the gateways that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, what they should do, obviously, if they're thinking about setting up a website, then as you say, there are all different elements to it, and if they're adding a shopping cart, then they need to make sure that it's obviously compatible with the actual processing of the payments here in Bermuda. So they would need, that's one of the first questions they should ask with the company that they're using is this compatible with processing payments in Bermuda, and they should respond very quickly with that to say yes, we're working with through this company. So they're all very familiar with exactly how it works. But as you say, it is a chicken and egg situation. But invariably, what people have done is they're having the website built. At the same time, they will then ask that question of the company which is building the website. is it compatible?
Right.
I currently have an account with this bank. Is it going to be straightforward? And they will say yes.
So one of the things, Peter, that some of our entrepreneurs who are just starting out are struggle with is um, the cost for setting up a merchant account. So you're unsure how many sales you're going to get. And one of the things that they have asked is there a minimum number of transactions that have to be made before they're able to set up a merchant account?
No, I mean we have all sorts of merchants who have applied to us for accounts, and they all have differing volumes going through their accounts, because some particularly with COVID-19, that has really brought e-commerce to the fore here in Bermuda, because prior to that, the majority of the accounts that we had were really with hotels and companies that would primarily be dealing with international clients. But with COVID, obviously, and people staying at home, there's a lot more people who are using computers to order items, whether it be food. We've had an awful lot of restaurants building websites and asking for the e-commerce facility, because then people can order online. So it really depends on the merchant, but no, there isn't any minimum number of transactions. Obviously the merchant just has to decide whether it's economically worth their while to do this. But if they've already got a website, obviously they would have established the financials behind it, because in terms of setting up the account, there is a monthly fee, and that's because we're charged by the card scheme networks in order to provide that service. But the fee that is charged is a very competitive percentage rate that is charged again by the card schemes
Right.
and ourselves to cover our costs. So it's certainly not cost prohibitive
Right.
for
But it
new
sounds like
merchants.
the business owner has to do sort of an analysis, right? To see, like you said, once they speak with one of your representatives, to get a sense of, is it going to be worth investing in setting up the merchant account now, or should I wait later? Do you have an idea about how long it would take to set up a merchant account, if that is the way they want to proceed?
I mean, the good thing about it is, if they come to us with the completed documents, and they're certainly not onerous, so they're fairly clear and easy to complete. We can have we say 5 business days, but invariably it's all set up before that time.
Okay.
So it's not a lengthy process. We have to obviously do. There are certain checks that we have to do, and
Right.
From a credit risk perspective, and there's some, the back office setup procedures, both internally within Butterfield and our processor. But as I say, it's only a matter of a few days.
Okay.
Getting the
So
whole thing
is
set up.
to being a Butterfield client, is it a shortened application time if you already have an account there, or is it a completely separate application process?
No, if you've already got say for instance, you own a shop already, on the island, small retail shop, but then you've decided, yes, you want to open up an e-commerce account. We've already got that from a merchant perspective, that historical, view of your account. So, and you would have signed an agreement with us to accept physical plastics, for instance,
Right.
when somebody comes into it. So then it's simply a case of signing an addenda to that agreement for e-commerce. So it's a very simple procedure.
Okay. Awesome. Well, does anyone else have any questions for Peter about payment processing? If you think of something, you have the option of typing it into the question bar, or they can raise their hand, right, Kelsey?
Yes, there's a couple of questions. So the first question is from Joyce Hayward. She's asking if can a list of the accepted gateways for Bermuda be sent out? Is there somewhere that they can access this on your website for Butterfield specifically, Peter?
There isn't actually on the website. It is something that I plan to do. I mean, and it's really in reaction to the recent number of inquiries that we've had. Prior to that, it as I say, they were fairly few and far between because they were really just done for major retail who were dealing with international clients and hotels. But this has thrown up, a number of thoughts that how do we make this easier for all businesses across the island. So that is one of the things that we will be putting up. But if they just want to contact us on the Bermuda Merchant Services email, then we will send out a list of all those providers.
Peter, could we at least send it to the people who are on this call so I can reach out to you and see if I can get that information and forward it on? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
And another question is, how much does it cost to open a merchant account?
Well, I can't really discuss this in an open forum because it does depend upon the size of the business, whether there's a current relationship with the bank, etc. But all I can say is that it's not prohibitive, and I think we're looking at this to we understand that small businesses don't have a lot of cash flow, certainly in the beginning. So we will make it as easy as possible for them to do. And the main cost is an ongoing cost, which is the percentage which is charged per transaction. So rather than somebody having to put a lot of money up front, it's really done as the business progresses and we see the transactions going through.
Okay, great. Would that be the same for the monthly fees? Is there a standard monthly fee for everybody that you can tell us how much that is?
Yeah, I mean it's there is a monthly fee, and that's again, these are the fees that we have to pay to the card scheme. These so they purely cover our costs. So it's not a Butterfield cost. This is a cost charged by the network for the acceptance of Visa, MasterCard, etc. So there is a monthly support fee which is $30, and there's a security layer which is paid to a third party company, which is $5 per month, and then there's a 10 cents per transaction.
Okay. Well, that helps. That gives us a little bit of an idea.
Yeah. So I'm not giving away everything, but those are the standard fees. So you can see that it's not prohibitive. To actually get everything up and running. It's yes, there is a a discount rate charged for, each transaction that goes through, but that happens everywhere in the world, and as I say, these are all based to do with the card scheme costs that come through.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter. Are there any other questions, Kelsey? All right, perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and speak with us. You're welcome to stay on the call. We may get some other questions, but now we can go right into the engaged conversation. And I would say, of our panelists that we have here, how many of you actually have payment processing like on your website? So Kelsey, I would just ask you, what was your experience in setting that up? Was it a difficult process? Did you feel like you needed to set it up?
So originally for me, when I first wanted to start Novelty, I only wanted to do online. That was my goal. I wanted an online store and nothing else. So then I got a bit of a rude awakening when it came to setting up the process, and it wasn't as easy as I anticipated it being. So it did end up taking me quite a long time to get payment processing started. So I ended up having to build the website and let people make orders but pay via bank transfer instead of directly using their card.
Right.
So initially that was a bit prohibitive, and it's just another step in the process for consumers that they don't really want to take. So it did end up costing me sales.
Right.
However, when I was able to properly get the payment set up through the banks and establish a merchant account, then it did become an easier process, and it was definitely worth doing. However, the whole process of getting it set up was not a quick and easy one.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because I'm actually going through the process right now with NAB in establishing a merchant account and accepting payments. And in my experience, as well as in my experience speaking with others, the main challenge was the fact that they just didn't know where to even start, who to contact, what the forms were. So when people have said to me, oh, it was very difficult, it was half the reason it was difficult was because they didn't have any clue really where to start. Whereas whether it's because I work in the bank or it's because I've been doing so much in my capacity with NAB, I know what the process is, and I've actually found it super easy just because of the knowledge that I have about who I need to call to ask questions, what the forms are, what the exact process and steps are, instead of doing something that really should have been done first and then having to backtrack. And so I don't know if you agree, Kelsey, if part of your challenge was just not knowing where to start or who to contact or what the exact forms were that you were supposed to fill out, things like that.
Well, unfortunately for me, that wasn't really the issue. I had access to all of that information. The major thing for me was the relationship with the banks. So I filled out all the applications, met all the requirements that they had. However, they were not open to opening the account, and this has gotten better. This was a couple years ago for me, so I think the banks are more inclined to this sort of business, but at the time when I was doing it, online business in Bermuda was just not really a thing at the time.
Yeah.
And
I do have to agree. I've had my business for quite a long time, and I recently taken my website down. When I first constructed it, it was really difficult to have that payment process made available, but that was when not many Bermudian companies were trading online, doing commerce online, sorry. But I'm reconstructing my website with the payment portal. And this time around, especially, I guess, because of the major push during COVID, the process has been completely simplified. And it is much easier if you do already have that, that connection with the bank. So if you already have a merchant account,
ID.
That's another piece of paper that you hand in, and within the week. Well, it took a little time because I kind of put mine in just before lockdown, but the process was a lot more simplified. So the banks are, steady improving their services.
Better, right? Is Peter still on the line?
He is.
Hi, Peter. So,
I'm listening with great.
But no, what I was saying, I would echo what everyone has said. I do think that the banks in Bermuda specifically have come a long way, especially with COVID. So it has its little blessings in there to understanding and recognizing the online commerce more. I think in conversations with other entrepreneurs, unless you had a physical brick and mortar store or a physical product that you were selling, it was a hard sell to go in and be like, no, I'm just trading online. There isn't anything specifically I'm going to give to anybody. I just want to set up an online process. And back in the day, when we first started having these conversations, that was a challenge to kind of get relationships mind around. They were like, no, we need to see something. And I think one of the main issues was chargebacks, right? I know that banks don't like that. And so managing that and what the costs associated with those could have been part of the problem. But I'm glad to hear you guys say that it's a lot easier now. And so I think that bodes well for those who are on the call who are interested in setting up, right? Because now, like in a lockdown or something like that, that's the only recourse they have to continue to be doing business. So I'm happy to hear you guys say that it's not taking as long, because I'm sure you're going to get even more requests, Peter. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, even within the bank itself, the employees here, it's as I say, they were very few and far between, these requests coming in. So, people really weren't as familiar with, handling all of this. But also what we have to realize is that inherently with a website, where you physically don't know the client, you're dealing with somebody, via a website, there is inherently more risk attached to that transaction. It's not like, somebody is coming in, they're handing over their card, they put it in the point of sale machine where
Right.
they have a chip on the card and they put in the PIN number, etc. So there you get to see the person face to face, that that they put in a card security code, which should only be known to them, etc. So using it via a website, as I say, you don't really know the customer, so inherently there's more questions to be asked, and unfortunately, a lot more fraud is committed online, across the world. So that's why probably a few more questions are asked, when starting up an account. So, we can actually understand fully what the business is about, who those potential customers are, whether they're going to be local customers or international customers, what types of things, you will be selling, etc. But also, what has become really important during this time is what is the refund policy that merchant has, because as long as it is totally clear to the customer and they have bought into that refund policy, then the number of chargebacks declines, significantly, because they've already bought into the fact that there may be no returns, or in the case of a hotel, if somebody puts a deposit for a room, for instance, and it's a no refund deposit, and it clearly states that when you're booking the thing, then that means that the customer doesn't have that automatic recourse to get that money back. So that's one of the things that I would urge anybody who is setting up their website is, please make sure that your refund policy is very, very clear to the customer, and if there's possible for them to tick somewhere that they've read the conditions, because then that can always be given in evidence if a chargeback ever does materialize.
Perfect. So before you go, Kamala, I'm just going to put Danielle on notice. All of those steps that you have to go through to set up your merchant account, hopefully we can get that information from you and Peter and share it with those who are on the call. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, and we can also share the link. Peter and I recorded a video outlining all the steps to setting up a merchant account with Butterfield specifically, and it is currently posted on LinkedIn on Butterfield's channel. It's also on NAB's YouTube channel, which is accessible via my link in bio on NAB. But yeah, we have some information already outlining the steps.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Kamala.
Yeah, I don't work at the bank like Danielle. So, and I wanted to just speak to the people that are listening. I do recommend that jumping online with your business is vital during these times, but it is also more important to educate yourself, because as you hear from the bank, that their knowledge and their accessibility to us as their clients is growing rapidly. So they are learning just as much as we are. They're used to dealing with larger companies, and our individual needs, they're kind of just getting used to as well. So in filling out the forms, knowing that I needed a refund policy, I needed that HIPAA information. Those are things that are key knowledge points, because you know your business best, and the bank, you actually have to develop a kind of a new relationship, even though you may have already had a relationship with them if you're your regular merchant account. This is a new relationship that you're developing, and you want to be aware of how many transactions you are going through, so that you know your fees. You're better able to build that relationship so that you can work that fee structure into your favor. Develop that relationship with your customers so that you don't have those chargebacks, because fee structures are something that hopefully will evolve with the demand over time. I'm not going to say I'm completely in agreement with the fee structure, but the online payment processing is something that I definitely need at the moment. So I'm hoping to make sure that I boost enough sales through online that I'm able to say, well, these are my sales figures. Is there anything that you can do as far as if I'm growing my business online specifically?
I mean, that's a great point. I was going to ask you guys each, do you think it's necessary? I heard you, Kelsey, say that when you started, you did the direct deposit, right? So people did the transfers and things like that. And I know a lot of people start off like that, right? They don't even have a website per se, but they're selling their goods, whether it be on Facebook or some other platform, and people can just direct deposit. And to be honest, I had never seen that until I moved to Bermuda. I was like, who gives out bank account information? Because in the States, your account will be empty before you blink your eyes. So I do know that is something that is done here. And it could be a stepping stone to actually getting that online processing, just so you can start having the revenue come in. So I just wanted to say that. Is there any other examples of, outside of just having an online payment processing, that you guys have experienced yourselves that can facilitate you getting bank transactions? So are you all in agreement that you need to have online payment processing if you're going to be online? Yeah.
I think you have to really assess where your business is at the time, because there are a lot of things to take into consideration, because you're not only getting charged by the bank, but you also do get charged by the payment processor as well. So there's different fees that are outside of the bank to consider. So I think you really have to look at your business and see if it makes sense to go that route. Right. I would 100% advocate for payment processing. It just makes it a lot more convenient for the consumer, and the more convenient and efficient the process is, it definitely translated into more sales in my case as well. But really just getting to know your business, and if not, there are other options. I think because we do live in Bermuda and it is small, then
Yeah.
people are more willing to do bank transfers or meet you at your house and give you cash and that sort of stuff. So that can be taken into account as well. However, if you are definitely looking to do business outside of Bermuda as well, then the payment processing is going to be 100% necessary.
I would definitely agree. And we're always trying to encourage people to think how they can sell their goods, products, or services outside of Bermuda. I think online presents that opportunity, right? It just doesn't have to be here. Yes, go ahead.
Well, because I just want to expand two things. One,
Okay.
when Kelsey mentioned, you know, she saw an increase in sales. I've definitely purchased things and then I see I have to do a bank transfer, or I'm like, forget it. Like, it just, I'm like, I'm in my car or something. I don't have time to log on to my bank and try. So I drop it. So I do think it's important. But the other key thing is it enables somebody to be selling 24/7. And that's, I think, and to your point, internationally. And I think people need to stop only thinking of Bermuda as their marketplace, and also realize that 9 to 5 is not the business hours. It's 24 hours. So if you have an online presence, you could be generating sales in your sleep, which is the ultimate goal of an entrepreneur. So
Right.
I'm 100% about providing convenience through being online, but also helping myself generate more money, because I'm not limited to, oh, they can only call me when my store opens or something like that. Forget it. Log on anytime you want and buy my stuff.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that's what we're trying to say or encourage people to do with this presentation. It's like, whereas traditionally you could go face to face because Bermuda is small, you need to be thinking about what's next, especially with COVID. Like, when is the world going to be back open to the way it was? And so how are you able to continue to do business and conduct sales? I mean, perhaps you guys can share how each of your businesses has had to change as a result of this pandemic. I'll start with you, Kamala.
I don't know what to start.
Right?
Well, I guess I'll go first. It completely shut my business down. I operate a food in the food industry, so restaurants and things were shut down. I'm not specifically essential business because cupcakes apparently are not. Apparently, you don't need cupcakes to survive. I would have never known that. But in order to, one, I hate this term, but stay relevant, and to keep my business in the customers' minds, I jumped online with some online classes, just to keep people entertained, and that did help to generate some business for me. So once we were off lockdown and I can then go back and bake and do deliveries, it helped with that. So it just encouraged me to think outside the box a little bit more, and to definitely say, okay, well, these are my customers. I've gotten to know them over this many years. What might they want right now? And I think I was able to figure that out relatively quickly. And I think, well, in talks with Jamila last week, I kind of already had some things already thought out. So it was just about, biting the bullet, jumping on that, and testing the market with like the online classes, online purchases, home deliveries, and things like that. So that's how my business was changed during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Danielle.
No, go ahead, because I was just gonna lead on about how it's changed my business. But if you have a question, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think some people, they can't wrap their minds around. It's like, well, you're a baker. You sell this product. How else are you how would you do that online? So it's just helping people to, like you said, start thinking outside the box to say, well, what can I do? And you started with the online courses. You did the hot cross bun video live demonstration and all of that. So It doesn't have to be like all at once. I think it is acceptable for it to be phased, but you have to have that online presence. You have to be there when people can't physically come to your location anymore. So, yeah. Okay, go ahead, Danielle.
Well, what I run is basically a media and marketing company, and I think COVID really showed people that when you don't have foot traffic just naturally coming in your store, the only way to stay top of mind and relevant, for Kamala's word there, is to be marketing, to be in their face through the channels that they're on. And during lockdown, those channels were very much social media based, online based. So what I saw, I mean, my business was always an online. I don't have a brick and mortar because it's a service-based business, but certainly I saw increased interest from retailers looking for ways to make sure that if somebody needed something, that they were the first place that they thought of. So if I need some toiletries or some self-care products, I want to be the first store that anyone online might look to find those things. And it requires consistency and creative marketing and just being in those consumers' faces all the time. I mean, in my role as head of business development for Butterfield, that's totally my wheelhouse, and that's how we generate business, because not always will people need us, but when they do need us, we want to make sure the information to reach us is right there in front of them. We're right there top of mind for them. So marketing has become essential to a lot of businesses. And whereas before they just thought the business just somehow came to them, forget it, that's not happening anymore. Also, because the world has become so globalized, stores on Reed Street and Front Street are competing with stores in New York, Miami, everywhere. They're competing for dollars. So nobody's just going to give you money just because. They need to know what you sell, what your value is, why they need to be shopping with you. And if you're not communicating through different channels, they're not going to remember you always.
Yeah, that is very true. Very true. I think some people think, well, if I build it, they're going to come, right? I'm going to put it up.
Yeah. I want to make a comment about that too. You know, when we're talking about fees, I've heard this before. People build a website and they're like, well, that was a waste of money. No one's really using it. No one's going to use it if you don't tell them that it exists or why they need to be using it or showing them the value of it as a tool. I mean, of course, it's not going to pay for itself if you're not marketing. It's not going to market itself.
That's right.
So, these are all the things that people need to remember, that just because you build it, people are not going to use it. It requires effort. And when you don't have time to make that effort, you hire NAB to do it.
Well done. Kelsey, how has it changed for you?
Just before I say that, we've just got a question just to remind everybody what businesses we're talking about. So my business is Novelty, and Danielle is the NAB app, and Camilla is Sweet Sack Bakery, for everybody to know.
Yeah.
I guess for me, how has it changed? Really, prior to COVID, I'd had payment set up and you could buy right on my website, but I found the adoption to actually do so was a bit slow. Like I would have people call me all the time and be like, hi, I'm on your website, but I want to order with you over the phone. So it was a little strange. But I think with COVID, it has sort of shifted people's mindsets, and they're more willing to shop online and and do so through businesses locally, and they're more used to the idea. So it definitely saw an increase for me as far as online sales go.
I mean, that's a great point. I do think that in Bermuda, we know that people shop online. I know, Danielle, when you were starting the NAB app, you did all this research, so you know how many millions of dollars are spent with us buying things from overseas retailers, but for whatever reason, we wouldn't do the same locally. So I do think that COVID has been a blessing for those of you who are considering getting online now. For one, it's better for the banks, because the banks are like, okay, well, we better, make sure we can support these requests to get these people online. But also, it's better in terms of mindset from people shopping locally online. So I'm definitely pleased about that. Now I know I'm looking at the time, but I want to talk a little bit about some of the other options for getting online, because not everybody is ready to build a website, but they still want to have some online presence. How best would you suggest they do that?
I would sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I would suggest social media channels as a very effective way to get online and showcase your products. And Facebook in particular is really cool because it has Facebook shops and things where you can upload visuals of your products. So you can still show people what you have, display prices, and be able to essentially operate through those channels. And arguably, most people are finding out about new brands and products and stores through social channels like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok has, taken over for a much younger generation in particular. But I would say those are ways to get online without actually building an online website.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to the marketing point that you were making, Danielle. It's not as simple as just building a website and then expecting people to come to it. If you have all of those social platforms and you make sure that you integrate them all and they're all connected, that's going to help you out as far as people selling as well. Because like you said, the majority of people find new products and stuff on Instagram per se. But if your Instagram isn't then connected in an easy way for somebody to then buy your products, it kind of it defeats the purpose. So if you don't have the money or the time to start with a website, at least make sure all of those platforms are connected, and whatever you are using does make it as easy as possible for the consumer.
I have to say, sorry, that I became a novelty enthusiast over. So I'm so happy to finally be seeing Kelsey in person, and that's all because of a sponsored ad from Novelty. And I am down to my final T in my in my Mother's Day pack that I got. And yeah, it's as simple as an ordering platform. And once I saw that ad, I shared it with my son. I want this for Mother's Day. And he was able to make that purchase and purchase a few other things. So I love my little teapot that I got. But having an easy platform for your customers to navigate through is essential. You don't necessarily need a full website. I'm not going to say that building a website is the most fun thing to do, but Facebook is excellent for that. I personally love Instagram more because it's more instantaneous. You can post something up. It's easier to just talk to customers and things like that. But Facebook analytics is amazing if you want to know where your customer is, what they're doing. They give you demographics and really break down the user interaction with your page. So you can run a very proficient business off of Facebook, and it's really, really easy and very cheap or cost effective to advertise through. So Facebook is something that you can just pop on very quickly.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Camilla. Because of COVID, Facebook and Instagram have really been shifting more towards creating better options for small businesses and selling products. So they have actually released a lot of new features in the past couple months. Unfortunately, some of those features don't work yet in Bermuda, but I will say that it's definitely important to keep watch on those two places for when those features will work here, because they definitely have a lot of great options for showcasing your products, selling them, and all of that. And they're definitely working on creating more options too.
And
I was just going to talk about one of the features, which is great, but
Go
Well, I
ahead.
was going to say one that works that was recently released is the DM me button. So if you post up a story, like showcasing a product, price, whatever, right in there, you can have a button where people can DM you immediately to just say, hey, do you have my size? Can you hold one for me? You know, I want to buy that, whatever. So again, it's just convenience for people to get access. And yeah, Kelsey, I was reading about all the updates and I'm like, man, I wish all these worked here. Some are not even available really throughout the full US, but yeah, when they do become available, it's going to be incredible.
Yeah,
And
it really, there's a lot of really cool features that they're working on, and COVID has definitely accelerated a lot of their plans. So I think we're all in, it'll just be great when it actually works.
And I also just wanted to add, because I know we're at our at the time, is in lieu of waiting for the features, there are some current like virtual market platforms in Bermuda. So if you don't have the ability to do a website and you don't have the Facebook features, you can list on those existing platforms. So PTix is a virtual market, Sargasso Sea, I think they do 441, Amazuda, and Admuda, just to name a few. And I can follow up with links to each of these when we send out the email. I actually have a list of like 45 questions that I was going to ask these lovely ladies and Peter, but I thought it was quite ambitious for me to get through them all. So if they would indulge me, I will send them the questions, and if they wouldn't mind just putting their answers to them, and I can circulate that with you as well. Because I wanted to talk a little bit more about marketing and how you utilize that. I think we touched on it a little bit, but certainly in an hour, I knew it was going to be ambitious to get through everything.
We need a whole new session around marketing. Oh my God.
I'm gonna try to squeeze it in, but I knew it wasn't. But I think just to summarize, if you're not online, you need to be working your way there. There are options for you to phase getting to that full website with payment processing. I would encourage all of you to use those options. Reach out to us, reach out to Danielle, reach out to Butterfield Bank. Again, we will follow up with what some of the things that we talked about, as well as this actual presentation was being recorded. But definitely want to take advantage of the options that are being presented through Facebook, Instagram, and any other platform to slowly get yourself online, because the mindset in Bermuda has changed, and it also opens international doors for you and your business. So any last words, ladies? And let them know how they can reach you.
You can reach me online, Sweet Sack Bakery. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My website will be launched soon, and it'll have an ordering platform. But I do encourage everyone who's starting a business or who already has a business to definitely get online and start. And just like Jamila said, once you're online, you're no longer just a Bermuda business. You are an international entity. So, go out there and be great.
Okay, so for me, if you want people to know about your products, you should be following NAB right now on Instagram at the NAB app. NAB.bm is my website. You can reach me at Danielle at NAB.bm. It's NAB. So easy to remember. So again, you want people to see your products? NAB it through NAB.
Well done.
So mine is Noveltea, Noveltea, because we sell tea. You can find us on Instagram, Noveltea BDA, and as well as Facebook. I am currently updating my website because we're getting in a lot of new products which have just arrived on island, so I'm excited about that. So the website is under construction at the minute, but if you keep an eye on it, it's noveltea.co.
Awesome. Peter, you hung in there with us.
I'm still here. It's been fascinating listening to you all. And if anybody wants to contact me,
yes,
they can do it via Bermuda Merchant Services at butterfieldgroup.com, or if directly to me, it's peter.fawn, FAWN, at butterfieldgroup.com.
Dog has had enough. Thank you guys so much. We will be following up with all of you who registered to provide all the extra information as well as a recording of this presentation. Enjoy the rest of your week and get online. Thank you, ladies.
Yay!
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.